Thanks, Tom. Just want to start off by saying this looks really formal, and this is a presentation I gave a couple of weeks ago at a conference, so that's why it looks like really a bit formal. But yeah, basically I'm going to be speaking about navigating stakeholders. I'll talk a bit about my history, and so you can see where I've come from and my angle for what I do. So I'm the Innovation and Inclusion Manager at Gymnastics Victoria. So sorry, this is a Prezi, and since I'm going to be flying through it, you might get a bit seasick, so just close your eyes. So I started off as a personal trainer and a swim instructor, and my passion was always in sport, which kind of took me on my path of becoming inclusive. Now, I got asked to swim teach a guy who had an acquired brain injury. He got this acquired brain injury from having a motorbike accident while in holidays in the Greek islands. And I was really nervous about working with him because I hadn't really been exposed to people with disabilities before. But being Gen Y, I thought, why not give it a go? And we became really good mates. So that's kind of what kicked off my passion for working with people with disabilities in sport. I saw him up in the gym one day and he was doing all these exercises wrong. And I thought to myself, what PT would go up to him and say, hey mate, this is your technique you use for a bench press, because of the fear that I had before I started working with people with disabilities. So I did a Bachelor of Applied Science and majored in disability. Then I worked for a disability organisation where I did community inclusion for people with disabilities, which led me in all sorts of directions. I ended up for a men's health group that I was supporting. One of the things they wanted to do was go to the strippers every year, and I would take them and I would have to, because some of them couldn't verbally communicate, I would have to be the pimp for these guys who wanted to just point to a girl and I'd have to work it out. Really, really uncomfortable, but that is one of the many things I did as a part of working for a disability organisation. So then I did honours in health science and researched the benefits of physical activity for people with multiple disabilities. And I actually did this under Jeff Walkley, who spoke earlier. We found out through this research project that people who were exercising in community had a much higher well-being than people who were just exercising in a disability-specific environment versus people who were just going out to community. So essentially what we're all trying to do every day. So then I became a football coach for the Victorian Paralympic football team, and I was also the manager of the Victorian Special Olympics team. And now I'm the Innovation and Inclusion Manager at Gymnastics Victoria. And that position's kind of been moulded throughout my 5.5 years of being there. So we are funded by Vic Health and Victorian State Government for the majority of work that I take care of. We've got a couple of, we started with disability-specific projects, so after there was very much a disability-specific angle that I was coming from, and that's where my expertise was. So I've got a couple of videos here, just because of time we won't go through them. Sorry about that. And then we had a more broad inclusion focus, so we said to ourselves, if we're just trying to include people with disabilities, why not just broaden things slightly and include everybody? So that's kind of where our focus changed. Tom, if you wouldn't mind pressing play on this video here, brings a bit of relevance to, I suppose, some of the broad inclusion.
My life, who says, when you're going to retire. But when you've got a passion about something, you stick with it. Mine is about staying alive and enjoying. Are we ready? Off we go. And you step it out. Older adults themselves underestimate how far they can improve. So that for somebody to come in and say, "Sorry, I still haven't put my trousers on today. I wasn't sitting on the bed to do it." Or I can now put my knee up high enough that I can reach my foot to tie up shoelaces. Those are the things that they get excited about. It hasn't happened for a long time. Now, have to work on that leg. I think all people getting to the retirement age have, it's almost an innate fear. Will I start to lose my faculties they don't admit it to themselves. Active body, active mind. What's good for the body is good for the brain. And this is exactly what you're doing. You probably haven't ever done that in your life. You get more exercise. Let's come up with the happy endorphins. I live like that. Always stop it, lie down, you're making us tired. I'm 38 years old. Well, it's just the figures switched around. And I will keep on going as long as I can. Calm down now, don't get too excited. Then I'll go low on the waist, they might be like that.
So yeah, if you think about gymnastics, you wouldn't necessarily think about older adults. But that's the broad inclusion that we're starting to step into. And we've very consciously not used the word gymnastics because logically it just doesn't make sense for people from older adult backgrounds to get involved in gymnastics. So we call it Move for Life. And then we've got Aerobase, which is an inclusive program which is online that targets specialist and mainstream schools to learn aerobic skills. They go through 6 lessons and then they create their own routine and film themselves and send it back to us in an online competition. So completely online participation, which is a totally new area for us. Yeah, Tom, if you wouldn't mind pressing play on this one as well. We, as I said, we have a broad inclusion philosophy, just down the bottom. So, historically, gymnastics, if you picture a gymnast, it's a Caucasian girl, about 7 years old on a beam. So the point of this picture, or this poster, was to challenge that, and these are all people participating in gymnastics in our community. So we just wanted to start telling our story that we are an inclusive sport for everyone. So we've recently stepped into innovation through health promotion, through the water initiatives from Vic Health, and also retention. So when it comes to partnerships, what I want to highlight is how to navigate gatekeepers, because I think that's one of the hardest parts of actually establishing a solid relationship. So who are the gatekeepers? From a state sporting association level, the gatekeepers start at the board. So they start from the top. And I just wanted to highlight a few people at our staff level that are also gatekeepers. So our club development manager is a gatekeeper. Our marketing and comms manager is a gatekeeper. If your marketing person isn't selling the inclusive message and is just sending out images of 7-year-old Caucasian girls, there is no way you're going to get older adults participating in your sport. Our club services officer, the person who takes all the calls when they come into the office, if they're just sending them straight to me, who's circled in red, I'm going to have all that work. But if they know that they need to send information about education or events to the right department, that's a really important person to have on side. Our CEO is vital in terms of making sure he's on board. He's a big gatekeeper because he sets a lot of KPIs. Our events manager and our education manager are 2 key players when it comes to navigating gatekeepers. Because I know nothing about running events or organising education courses, and I shouldn't have to, being the inclusion manager. It's their job. So I just wanted to highlight in your SSAs, if you're the person doing everything, then there's going to be a problem, especially if you move on and all that knowledge goes from the organisation. It's just not embedded. So it's important that we navigate gatekeepers, one, but also that they take on responsibility. So what about Clubland? These are the gatekeepers at Clubland. So our club manager, our volunteers, our coaches, our club owners, and our committee members. So these are just a few people that I identified that are gatekeepers. And depending on your role, you're going to be speaking to different people. So So who will they listen to? So our board and our CEO are going to listen to our funders. And it's important to know that, because when I am trying to manage up, I'm not going to say, hey, this is my opinion as the innovation and inclusion manager. I'm going to say, this is our funders, this is what our funders want. Because they won't listen to me. Because they don't want funding cut. And it's a reality of what we're working with. You know, for organisations that are medium to small size, that's a really important, government and Vic Health funding is massive for us. I had a bit of a disconnect within Gymnastics Victoria in terms of I was working on these inclusive initiatives, and I told you at the start, disability was my major focus. And then the board came out with this strategic plan, and it had nothing to do with people with disabilities, but had a whole bunch of stuff around, you know, engaging multicultural communities. And I was like, where the heck did this come from? And I realised there was a massive issue between what the board wanted us to do and versus what we actually said we would do to our funders. So I said our funders would like an inclusive advocate at our board level. So now we have an inclusive advocate, and we catch up semi-regularly, and now everything that we are funded for is replicated in the strategic plan. But that was an important step in making sure I was aligned with the board, which is sometimes pretty hard to beat. So our staff listened to our CEO and board, and the only way I could ingrain inclusion into people's KPIs was for it to come from our CEO and our board. Because again, if I went up to our education manager and said, hey, guess what, this is what we need, no one wants to take on more work. So it's important that we understand who they're listening to for how we I guess, go about those conversations. But who do our clubs listen to? Sometimes it's funders. So I was saying, I was speaking to Andrew before about one of our initiatives we're trying to work on. When I was speaking to the club manager to get things off the ground, I have a whole bunch of angles I could take, but I actually went down the funder angle because I know they like to be seen as ahead of the game. They like to be seen as innovative. So if I say, hey, Vic Health are really keen on you driving this, they're really up for it and they'll get it done. But yeah, it depends on who you're speaking to at the club. Sometimes it'll be funders, other times it might be the State Sporting Association. We have a 98% satisfaction rate with our clubs, which wasn't always the case. We had a 63% satisfaction rate about 3 years ago, and our CEO came in and said, you know what, our clubs are the key to our success. So he changed a few things, and now we have a really solid relationship with our clubs, which means when we kick off initiatives like Move for Life, our clubs are putting up their hands and saying, yeah, we are keen to get involved. Or if we ask them for support with water initiatives, they're keen to help us out. Sometimes they'll listen to partners or specialist services or organisations like these groups. So sometimes if I'm trying to kick off Move for Life again, I might go in with CODA into the meeting, and we'll sit down together with the club because that's who they're going to listen to. They don't want to listen to me. So you just need to work out who it is they'll be listening to. Sometimes they listen to local council, and often they listen to other clubs. So that's why I think when Jeff was speaking about working on one thing and concentrating on that, that's what we do. We try and concentrate on clubs, get a good example, and get them to sell the messages. Because I don't know about you guys, but we technically don't work in the club land, and when we go out to these clubs, they're like, you don't know what we're talking about because your club did it down the road. They don't have a leg to stand on. So where do you start? Coffee. Coffee is one of the most important parts of what I do in finding out what people are interested in, who they're going to listen to. But that first coffee meeting is so important. So yeah, consultation is a big part of my Vic Health budget. Yeah. Find out who to talk to at the club. So you need to work out who's passionate versus who's actually going to make a difference. So you might have volunteers or coaches that are really passionate about initiatives, but unless you have the committee, the club owner on board, it's not going to work. Because if that volunteer moves on, that person was the only passionate individual at the club, the initiative's gone. So it's really important that whatever you set up, it's got to be with the right people. What is the club versus the person's value proposition? So as Jeff spoke about this morning, is it about good business? Is it about increasing members? Is it about access to training and resources, or access to funding and awards that it's going to be interest to clubs? Is it concern about discriminating, or is it about positive community image that they're after? And how do you find out what the value proposition is? Coffee. So, as I said before, those meetings are so important to sit down with your clubs. And I think Leisure Networks did it really well. They had the coffee with the right people to be able to make sure they had the knowledge to be able to kick things off successfully. So I'll give you a quick example. So we had our inclusive club guidelines. We first researched what was out there. So what guidelines currently exist to support clubs to become inclusive. We utilised all that information, which was a stack about this big, to create our own that would work for gymnastics. We created resources to support the guidelines. So we worked out what information we needed, and then we created resources. So we created an inclusive coaching workshop, inclusive promotional material, flyers, heroes, and examples from other clubs. We started by picking the lowest hanging fruit, which is an awful saying, but there's those clubs that you know are awesome and well run, and you've got to start with them, because once you start showing some good examples, then other clubs will be more interested. So we piloted the program with clubs across the state, and we strategically chose clubs, champion clubs in the north, south, east and west, and in regional areas. We worked with our champion clubs to shape the guidelines to make sure it wasn't just what we were thinking was standards, it was actually realistic and something they could achieve. And then we used their examples. So we started to gain a bit of a library of inclusive examples that we built into the program. So here's an example of, on the left, a promotional flyer that wasn't in plain language, and on the right, a promotional flyer that is in plain language, and we can hand that out to clubs to say, okay, we can support you to make this change. And it's much more accessible, not only for people with intellectual disabilities, but also for people that may not speak or English as a second language. We put our champions on pedestals. So those clubs that I spoke about we worked with at the start, we put them on pedestals and we recognised them as often as we could. So through our news stories, through our Facebook posts, through our annual awards. So we have our Inclusive Leader Club Award, we have our Inclusive Initiative of the Year Award, we have our Inclusive Leader of the Year Award. We get them up front and we make them feel good, and we tell all of our other clubs that this is what we respect and this is what we're really looking for from our clubs. But I thought to myself, I can't keep getting out for coffee with all these clubs over and over again. It's just not realistic. So how could I make my job easier? So we applied for funding to turn this program into an app that clubs could use. And we were unsuccessful. But then a few months later, the Victorian State Government came out with an inclusive and welcoming clubs grant, and we got the cash we needed to create this app. So here is the app. Essentially, it supports clubs. Instead of me going out and sitting next to clubs and talking them through every step of the way, the app does it for me. It also gives us a really clear picture from a state perspective on where our inclusive clubs are and where we have gaps and need support. So one of the benefits is we can build resources into the app. So when we ask them to do something, and they say, well, how do I do it? The resource is already in there. So they have information like this, club's got good access, communication resources that they can just tap into. And all those club examples I spoke about before, that's also built into the app as well. So we now have 25 inclusive leader clubs. We have over 700 coaches that have been through our inclusion workshop. We have over 50 partners that have been created through the inclusive club model. We've engaged over 11,000 people from underrepresented groups. So, just some key learnings. All initiatives need a key driver to be successful. It's really important that you have that person who's really carrying the torch, otherwise things just don't get done. Work with club management and consider a succession plan. It's reality in sport, people will move on. So make sure you're working with the top, you're ingraining everything in the club's strategic plan and yeah, considering that from the start. Don't underestimate the power of face-to-face meetings, especially at the start. Consultation is key to the program success. So bring clubs and champions on the journey. There is no one-size-fits-all, similar to leisure networks. Consider sustainability from the start. Continuously seek feedback and be open to changing your approach. So working with clubs is key to gaining those insights. Again, leisure networks touched on that. Funders don't mind if you change your approach as long as you're upfront with them and can show evidence. Aerobase is a good example of when I called Vanessa one afternoon and said, you know what, my idea, it's not working. What if we went down this path? And she said, yep, okay, that makes sense, logical sense. And now we have over 4,500 people that have engaged in Aerobase. Work hard to create supporting resources that will make your club's life easy. So at the moment, we're working on a club starter pack. So when we're saying, hey, kick off this initiative for us, but this is step by step how you actually get it done, because clubs don't have time. They need hand holding. Another example is our club marketing strategy. Often we tell them to kick off initiatives, but we don't actually tell them how to market it, who to market to, and so again, we're just working on that as an organisation. Promote your champions, as I discussed before. Research and utilise partners. If something doesn't work the first time, don't be afraid to persist. All initiatives take longer than we expect. And lastly, network with other sports to find out what's working well. Because there are some sports that are amazing at certain things, and I think RSAs as well, so we can learn from each other. That's it.
Are there any questions?
Kerry, the club starting pack you talked about, is that really linked with the app, or is that something that you're going to have to come directly to you guys?
I think eventually it will be linked into the app, but for now we're kind of still putting it together, so it'll be us supporting them. Yeah.
Kerry, in regards to your inclusive programs, do you roughly know what percentage of your total participation is in that area?
So out of the 11,000 underrepresented groups participating, so yeah, we have around, I think it's about 150,000 people participating in gymnastics every year. Yeah, so 11,000. It sounds like a lot, but in our overall participation, it's not that significant. No.
I've got one for you, Kerry. Have you done work with other types of external providers? And if yes, how similar was the approach and learnings in relation to, I guess, the support provided to clubs?
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah. So again, that coffee meeting is so important to work out what that partner wants out of the relationship. I think people are speaking about sponsorship as a thing of the past, and I think that's true. It's all about partners and how we can assist each other, and that first catch-up's like, what is your value proposition? What are you going to get out of this? So yeah, exactly the same. Yeah.
Kerry, with the app, 2 parts. First of all, roughly how much did it all cost from this from start to finish?
We've continually put money into it,
Okay,
so it's probably about 25 grand.
Yeah.
The benefits of the app is it's web-based, so if I need anything changed, I just do it myself.
Yeah.
It's not like I need to go to a developer to do it. So once the structure of the app is created, I can just, it's just like
And
a...
how long did that initial build of it take?
Not very long actually. It probably took about 3 months to build, but then we had to shape it when working with clubs.
Yeah.
So it's ongoing.
Yeah.
I'd say yeah, we're still, like, I would say it's still not right, but we're getting there. We've just put the child safe standards into the app, so now people can click either inclusive clubs or child safe.
And actually, the third one, I'm assuming people log into it.
Yep.
Yeah. So you know, Cheltenham Gymnastics Club logged in 20 times.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got those key people at all the clubs, and essentially every time they complete a section of the app, they click submit for approval. It sends me an email. I can go in, look at where they're at, provide feedback on specific guidelines. So if they're not quite meeting a particular area, I can say, can you provide me more information here? And also, one of the benefits of the app, we can choose who the coordinator of the club is. So if an RSA is working with a club, we can actually assign them as that key coordinator, and then essentially it comes to them for approval.
Follow-on question on that. Is the app for Android and iPhone?
Yeah. So the app's for both Android and Apple. Any other questions?
Have you had any detrimental effects from putting clubs up on a pedestal, i.e. programs fallen over, or they've had an issue at the club, or anything like that?
No.
Or did you do it so well that...
I think there was only one case where a club became an inclusive leader club and they had a change in management, and actually another company took over the actual facility, and in that case I would say they are now not an inclusive leader, which is a problem for us. So now we've got a 2-year timeline on the app where clubs have to go through the process again and again. So that's kind of a learning that we've had to build in afterwards.
Great, all right. Thanks so much, Kerry.